At Subway, start your day the flavorful way by adding new guacamole to your favorite breakfast sandwich. Perfectly made with a hint of jalapeno, our guacamole turns up the flavor to your breakfast. Try it today on a hot and toasty egg, white, and cheese. Subway, eat fresh.
The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects. The BS Report. The BS Report with Bill Simmons.
All right, part 3 of the BS Report, 7th anniversary marathon. In part 1, you got to hear Bill Barnwell talk about the NFL draft and my dad talking about playoff hockey and the Patriots. Part 2, Zach Lowe talking playoffs. We went a little long. We followed that up with the czar of reality TV, Dave Jacoby. Included a cameo from my daughter as I made her vow to do something. You'll have to listen to that one to hear what it was. Now, part 3, the first guest we ever had on the BS Report, which was then called I Have the Sports Guy. The first guest, Letterman had Bill Murray. Conan O'Brien had probably Will Ferrell, or who knows, not Will Ferrell, but somebody big. I had Marc Stein, and now he's here on the line right now. Marc Stein, my first podcast guest ever. How are you?
You don't know how proud I am of that little trivia, that little bit of trivia.
It should be in your Wikipedia page.
You know, the fact that you've just gone on to such and don't even need humble little guests like me anymore on this pod because you're like yucking it up with guys from Mad Men and all that stuff. I love that history will always show that my hideous voice was the first to join you on this show.
It's a great voice, and the reason you're not on more is because I don't tape enough podcasts, and anytime I hit you, you're always doing something. You're always driving or flying somewhere. You're always on the road. You're always en route. Anytime I've ever emailed you, you're in the process of heading from point A to point B.
But I always get on a landline for you somehow, unlike Rick Bucher.
I know. Well, Rick Bucher just doesn't own a landline is the issue. But it was funny. I had Bucher on this week. We used to do a couple 3-man pods until we decided not to do them anymore because he refused to ever get a landline. And he promised that Mark Jackson was coming back. And like the next day, Mark Jackson got fired, which was funny. But were you surprised that Mark Jackson got fired?
No. I mean, it had gotten so bad. And now I think we're seeing the full scope of it. Just more and more is going to keep spilling out. And just the distrust and the just contempt on both sides had gotten to the point that it was unworkable. I mean, honestly, the only way it would have worked is if the Warriors turned around and gave Mark Jackson an extra year on top of next year. And was Joe Lacob really going to do that? So, no. I mean, the minute the Warriors lost, I think realistically everybody close to that thing knew it was not going to continue.
Can you remember within league circles, and I will expand league circles to be anyone working for a team or anyone who covers the NBA or is involved in it in some capacity, more anticipation for a post-divorce, like just what was going to come out and be leaked and how things were going to be handled from both sides and what sources were going to be used. And I mean, I can't remember this much intrigue in a long time, right?
Yeah, and just what makes this one so different, I think, is just I can't remember too many times that prominent players repeatedly voice their support for a coach like we heard from Mark Jackson. I mean, Steph Curry basically campaigned for Mark Jackson to keep his job at least 5 times since March, and pretty vociferously so. And when Jermaine O'Neal, a few days before this goes down, says, you all get the feeling that he's not coming back. I mean, this is during the Clipper series, and someone in that locker room is publicly saying that. That to me was just a crazy quote. I mean, I guess, Lionel Hollins, same thing in Memphis. We knew even when they were making that run, would they bring him back? Would they not? But, I don't remember too many Grizzlies saying, yeah, I don't think he'll be back. I mean, this really was a one-of-a-kind deal.
Here's a fact. You might know this, you might not. Only 2 people ever won the Finals MVP and never won another playoff series. One of them was Michael Jordan. The other was your friend, Dirk Nowitzki. Thoughts?
I think you're intimating that Dirk will never win one. No, is that what we're saying?
No, I am not saying that. I'm just saying right now on.
Good, because we don't need to get into a fight 3 minutes into this thing.
Well, I ride with Dirk. May 2014, they've had a Finals MVP every year since 1969. Only 2 of them won the Finals MVP and did not win a playoff series.
Let's take it a step further. Until the Mavs found a new level in that San Antonio series, they were at risk for not winning a game since the title. They got swept by the Thunder. They didn't even make it last year. And going into that San Antonio series, everybody thought it was going to end in 5 or less. And, the Mavs, that was until the Game 7 nightmare, that was the best 6 games of basketball they played all year.
I love Dirk. And I also don't, I'd be hard pressed. Maybe LeBron is in this conversation. I'm sure Jordan in 91, I wasn't around for that, obviously, but there can't have been 4 other people whose lives were altered by winning a title more than Dirk. You can actually see the weight being lifted off him these last couple of years, right?
It is one of the great what ifs, that game that I know you love to play. It would have been a good one to say where his legacy would have been without the championship. I still think it would have been a pretty good one because obviously he still would have been in the top 10 all-time scorers. And I think it's, not an exaggeration to say that he revolutionized his position. He invented a new position, but without a championship, there's no question we'd look at him differently. So that one ring, even if he never does win another playoff series, that changes his legacy completely.
Yeah, he's right there with Barkley and Malone. He's just tied with those 3 guys, but now I think he's actually a little bit above them. And he's also, you look at his playoff stats, and he's one of the best playoff players ever. I think he's 26 or 27 a game, and he's close to 50, 40, 90, all that stuff. So,
and Carlisle's got that stat he invented where, 10-time All-Star, Finals MVP, regular season MVP, and there's only 12 of those, so Dirk is one of the top 12 of all time.
He's in the top 20. I'm at some point I'm going to write another version of my book to at least figure out the pyramid. And Dirk was one of the big winners from the last book. In the last book, he's like in the high 30s or something.
Yeah, I agree. I think top 20 is fair, somewhere in there.
The thing that's amazing with him is, he really lost his legs. He can barely move anymore, but he's figured out. He's making all the same shots he used to make, but the degree of difficulty of them are so much higher. All of his shots are almost getting blocked, but not getting blocked. And it's just the precision that he plays with now is really incredible because he doesn't have the legs anymore. And you saw it. The key play of that series was the Tthe 3. Dirk knew he was going to shoot it, and he just couldn't move his legs fast enough to get out there. He's just a different level of speed at this point.
And I think on offense, it hurts him because certainly San Antonio knows how to guard him better than anyone. They've been doing it forever. I mean, how many playoff series have we seen between San Antonio and Dallas? So Pop has been scheming for Dirk for literally more than a decade. But in some of those games, the way he was just catching and just taking the shot at the first opening, not even putting it on the deck. When he doesn't put it on the deck, that tells me this is a day that his legs are not cooperating and he just doesn't feel like he can go around a Thiago splitter, and that it's a crapshoot at his age. I mean, you see he's almost 36, and some days you just wake up and you don't have it. Your legs just aren't there, and I think that's why you still hear the Mavs saying we've got to get to the point that he's not the best player on the team, and he's still the best player on the team. And if they want to win playoff series going forward, they've got to get to the point where he isn't the best guy, where he can. He does. Look at San Antonio. Duncan, the load he carries, they're so good at easing his load during the regular season, and then when playoffs come, he's got gas in the tank to ramp it up.
Yeah, I voted for him. I voted for Dirk for number 5 MVP just because I think he's such a great teammate and a good leader, and he works so hard. He's so fun to play with, and that team overachieved, and I just feel like that stuff should matter when we're talking about MVP. But it's going to be interesting to see how long he plays because I got that feeling when we filmed the Finish Line episode with him and Nash that he looks at Nash and thinks to himself, I'm never going to go through all that just to get on the court. Like at some point, he's going to look at the pros and cons of the amount of time it has to spend to stay on the court at a certain level versus whether that's even worth it to do it. And I think he's out. I think he's one of those guys that would just retire one day and we'd all be shocked, don't you think?
The only reason I would dispute it is because Nash has always had 50 other interests off the floor, and I think he'll find a way to stay super busy doing filmmaking and everything else he does outside of hoops. I mean, the extent to which Dirk loves the game is ridiculous. I mean, he reads everything. He watches the Mavs will go out and he'll just sit on the couch all night long watching every single game. He is just so into the league that I think it will be hard for him when he steps away, because it will create a really big void. Whereas Nash, he kind of strikes me as the kind of guy that when he's done now, he's got this role with Canada basketball, so maybe that keeps him in the game, depending on how long he does that. But I don't know. I think when Nash goes, we're gonna have trouble finding him.
Interesting. Was it surreal for you to watch that Finish Line episode where they had dinner together, considering you've known those guys since forever?
Surreal/jealous. I wish I would have been at the dinner, especially because I know Al Whitley, the Mavs equipment manager, was there, and he knows, like Stern, he knows where all the bodies are buried. He didn't get to talk much in the part that aired, but I'm sure just listening to him tell the stories would have been good. Plus, I think the two of them forget a lot of stuff, which, of course, me being an annoying historical geek, I remember all the little details.
You've been prodding them, yeah. So you came on in 2007, May 8th. Podcasts weren't, who the hell knew what a podcast was?
Is that the first one, May 8th?
May 2007.
May 8th was also my bar mitzvah date, man. That's huge.
It's big. Now it's May 2014. We're still cranking them. The business, I would say, for what you do has changed so much over the last 7 years. Like, so many different ways for people to get your information now, between podcasts, Twitter, blog posts going up more often than usual, TV hits. Did you ever, you think about the mid-2000s, did you ever see your life going in the direction that it's in right now?
No, not really. I mean, I think, in 2007, I don't know. Twitter was obviously invented before I started using it. I don't know exactly when it kind of came into being, but I know I started using it right around the draft in 2009, and that's obviously changed so many things about the business. And so what I always say is, I can't wait for that next thing that we don't even know what's coming. In 2007, we wouldn't have even known what Twitter was going to do. And that means that in 2-3 years, there's probably something else coming that will completely change it again. That's what's so different about journalism now, as opposed to, you and I are basically the same age, as opposed to when we both started. And when we both started, It was a very clear, it didn't guarantee you would get there, but you knew exactly the path you had to take to kind of get where you wanted to go. If you wanted to cover the NBA, you had to start out answering phones and doing food runs, taking fish counts. Then it's high school football, and then you just kind of work your way up the ladder. Now, the landscape changes every few years because of technology, and you just can't predict. Who can predict what's coming next?
How stressful is your life? How much do you care about breaking stories compared to other people break stories? How much of that chews up your mental energy?
I'm obsessed about it. I'm an obsessive personality anyway, but this is still, to cover the NBA is still, I've been able to cover all the major sports in this country. I will always believe that this is the best beat to cover, the best combination of access and interesting people. And I think you just see the way the interest level in the NBA just continues to rise. I think, the NFL is still on a different level, and, the NFL draft is exhibit A of just how nuts everybody is for it. But after that, I do kind of buy into what Adam Silver's saying and what Cuban's saying. I think the NBA is mounting a mini challenge, and I think it is a incredibly newsy league, and all the little dramas, just look at what's happening in Indiana right now. We didn't cover the Pacers when they were, 40-10 or whatever they were, but now we dissect them with a microscope every day. I think people genuinely love the theater that is the NBA.
Yeah, I would say domestically, the NFL is still in the huge driver's seat. There's no question. TV ratings, just everything. But when you just look around the world, the NBA probably it might even already be more relevant than football around the world. But certainly over the next 10, 15 years. I don't think there's going to be any question. I think basketball is the second most popular sport in the world. It's behind soccer. And I don't think people outside America really care about American football that much. So
no, and that's the thing.
That's
I think
where
if you
basketball can win.
You go to Asia, now all these efforts in India to popularize the NBA. I don't think there's any. I mean, you see it when you go internationally. Like this summer, I'll get to go to Spain, which is
me too. I'm going.
And that is the absolute greatest part of the job. Like when you get to go with Team USA, all the free agency's done, the coaching madness is done. It's just hoops. It's the best. It's the absolute best. And you see the way people around the world just go nuts for a glimpse of these guys. And I'll never forget London and Kobe, just like the patience he had. And this was just with reporters. I mean, reporters asking him for pictures and, these reporters in Spain or wherever we are. And it's like, it's their life to just, stand next to Kobe or whatever. And these guys are ambassadors and they get it. The guys on Team USA really get it. I think they embrace, you heard the story in London, how after one of the games, they all took the subway home. I mean, it's really a different deal, but I just really think it's basketball in its purest form.
I agree with you. I think the NBA is in a great spot right now. And the fact that we don't even talk anymore about, does it matter what market makes the finals, right? Like, as long as you have one star in there, and really it's like Miami OKC would be the dream finals, but they're fine if it's Miami San Antonio. They're fine if it's Miami Portland. They'd be fine if it was Oklahoma City and freaking
look
Washington.
Look at your boy Kevin Love. I mean, he's getting Taco Bell campaigns playing in Minnesota, and he hasn't even made the playoffs yet. And he was, national, a pretty prominent national campaign. I do think that the big markets still have the advantages because, look, everybody wants to live in LA. I mean, that's just an undeniable fact. I mean, I'm from Southern California and I miss it every single day, and I've been gone 15 years. But
right.
You can win in smaller markets. The Spurs have proven that. The Thunder have proven it. I mean, if you got to get lucky. Obviously, luck is a huge part of it too. But yeah, the sports world shrinks a little bit every single day.
People are going to go to where they can win. And in the old days, people thought, I have the best chance to win and the best chance to be seen and marketed correctly if I'm in Los Angeles or New York or wherever. I don't think people feel that way anymore. I think people are always going to want to play in Los Angeles, but they might look at that Knicks situation and be like, James Dolan, I don't know. Like,
Speaking of the Knicks, what about your boy Stevie Kerr? Where's he going?
So at gunpoint, I would say New York, just because of his connection with Jackson. But I don't know. The Warriors situation is enticing.
I don't even think you need to say gunpoint. Honestly, I think he's going to the Knicks. I do too.
I think the way that Jackson Lacob thing played out. Would you want to work for Joe Lacob? He seems like a fine guy, but much better
relationship with Joe Lacob. I mean, that
I know he does.
I don't think that would put Kerr off. But the reality is, Phil Jackson. Greg Popovich is the godfather of coaching now. He's the guy everyone wants advice from. He's the guy everybody wants to hire his guys when they have openings. But Phil, rightfully, should be on that level with those 11 rings. But Steve Kerr, probably more than anybody you can name, looks at Phil that way. That Phil is, Kerr has this blessed thing where he's tight with Phil and Pop, which isn't easy to do because Phil and Pop have always had this wall between them. Kerr, kind of is Switzerland and gets along with both of them. And he cannot say no to Phil. It's gone too far. I cannot see him going to Phil and saying, yes, you want me to be your guy, you're going to mentor me, all these things, but no, I'm going to go to Golden State instead. I think that would be really tough to do.
Yeah, I didn't mean Lacob as much as just the Golden State situation, all the chefs they have in the kitchen. The fact that the players seem really tied to Jackson, I think that's tough to follow him. There's enough cons in that Golden State list that I think you can talk yourself in the Knicks. I expect him to be at the Knicks. My predictions would be him to the Knicks, Stan Van Gundy to the Warriors. I think makes a lot of sense. And Stan Van Gundy is a really good coach, who shouldn't really be available. So I think the Warriors would win there.
Well, here's the other thing. I mean, the reality is they've got to come back with an experienced coach. I mean, no knock on Steve, but if you're going to blow out a guy who Steph Curry wanted to stay, if you're Golden State, don't you have to give him a coach who has theoretically done more, had more experience, and can, quote, take it to the next level? I mean, to replace Mark Jackson with another guy who hasn't coached, to me, that makes it a really tough sell.
Yeah, you can't go with Dave Yeager or whoever this year's Dave Yeager is. I think it's got to be somebody who's done some stuff.
If you're Lacob, you can do whatever you want, but I just think selling players on that would be really, really tough. Whereas if you bring in someone like Stan, you can say, okay, this is a guy who's going to take us to new places and pitch it that way, and maybe it works.
Hey, one thing about just going back to the 2007 thing for a second. When did July become one of the most? When did from the draft all the way through July free agency become like its own incredible month? Like I almost feel like the NBA is moving closer and closer to being a 12-month-a-year sport like football. But I don't really remember the point when maybe it was the decision in 2010. I'm trying to remember what the tipping point was.
I think it's always been that way, but because of the tools we have now, because of Twitter and the immediacy and the fact that we see the difference is now we report every story piece by piece now. The Golden State Warriors are interested in Stan Van Gundy. The Golden State Warriors have contacted Stan Van Gundy. The Golden State Warriors have interviewed Stan Van Gundy. All of these things now are a story unto themselves, and it wasn't that way 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago. So, and I think the other thing, and I've always, I don't know exactly when it changed, but the transaction game to me captivates the public as much and sometimes even more than the real games. And that's actually depressing sometimes, like in the finals, when coaching moves or looking ahead to free agency can sometimes overshadow the finals. That's not good, but it happens. And I think it's because a lot of the public looks at this and says, I watch the game. I already know what's going on. I don't need, these analysts to tell me. The fans think they're smarter than the coach and GM. They certainly think they're smarter than me. So what they don't have, though, is that behind the scenes, what is my team going to do next? And just the thirst and hunger for that, it goes up every single year.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think people always cared about this stuff. I just think we have the tools now to care about it constantly because, you go back, I started writing for ESPN.com in 2001. I would do a big summer review article, and I always did a draft diary, things like that. The difference now is you can find out anything at any given point, whether, as you said, like the stories by piecemeal. There are all these salary websites where I can, I have the trade machine. I have all these Twitter. I have all these different blogs that are geared towards specific teams, and it's whatever information I want I can get now. And I don't think that was the case in 01, 02, 03. I mean, where were you going for information in 02?
This is how much it's changed in my 20 years. In 1994, 10 days before the trade deadline, I got thrown onto the Clipper beat. 10 days before Danny Manning gets traded for Dominique Wilkins, to that point, the biggest trade in Clipper history. The first thing I did when I was made the beat writer was go buy a fax machine. Why? So I could subscribe to Peter Vessey's Hoop du Jour. And I'm pretty sure Vesey broke the trade that morning in his fax that Neek and that Manning was going to be traded for Neek. I mean, it was that's how slow things were moving then.
I was working for I was at the Boston Herald, from 93 to 96 basically, and they had this old antiquated server with all stories from like the AP and all these different places. And it was like this terrible computer screen with green letters. And like, if you stare at the screen and like your eyes would start to cross, basically, it was just like primitive. But sometimes they would have stories from like the New York Post or Chicago or a place like that. And I would just be going to this weird part of this weird computer server, just begging for any Pete Vessey, anything. See, it was like, he was really the only one covering the draft in an informational way back then. The Globe, I guess, would do a little bit, but it seemed like I had no idea how many scoops Pete Vessey was getting compared to everyone else on the planet. And now it's like, God, there's 100 people who could have a scoop at any time. There's people I've never heard of who are getting scoops. It's amazing. Such a difference.
I mean, I remember when I started, what you did was when you got on a beat, you would get invited to join these notes networks, and there were 2 notes networks going that basically had a reporter in every city, and everybody would like send in these notes, and that's how guys used to do their Sunday columns in those days.
Yes.
Like they would nobody, because you couldn't see the Charlotte Observer, you couldn't see what was going on in Cleveland. It really is funny to think about it now.
Well, I mean, think about like Darnell Mayberry, who writes for the Oklahoma paper. Like, I feel like he's really the voice of anything that happens in Oklahoma City. You know, it's this random market. It's not even a top 50 TV market. They get Durant, they get Westbrook, they're a contender. Now Darnell Mayberry has this, incredible amount of influence with the stuff he reports and the sources he has, because there's really nobody else there. And it's made 20 years ago, we wouldn't have known who he was.
It's really made it hard for the beat guys too, because the other thing that happens now is any word that is uttered in public by anyone with any team is tweeted instantly. I mean, you don't have to be at the game, and any post-game access, name the team, name the coach, name the star player, every meaningful word they say is on Twitter within 1 minute of them saying it. And so
there's a danger to that too, because sometimes you cram stuff in 140 characters, or it's like one quote from a 10-minute interview, not taken out of context, basically. And then all of a sudden that becomes a story before you even realize why the quote was said the way it was. Oh, it was part of a 3-paragraph preamble setting up that quote. You know what I mean? I think there's real dangers that are happening. I don't know. I like most of it. I don't like all of it. I do feel like I don't like the consensus of opinion that seems to happen now, where, it goes from James Harden takes defensive plays off to James Harden as the Antichrist. And it's just, you can feel things mobilizing certain ways. And that part of it worries me. And I also don't like, I think the other part that I really don't like, and, you're not guilty of this, is the sources phenomenon, and a source tells me and all that stuff. And I just don't like that. I don't like the anonymity of stuff that if it turns out to be wrong, you weren't really on the record anyway because you were throwing it out there. I don't think that's a good precedent for reporting and just where things are going in general. I don't like it. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, we would never use it. But I think the reality is that, it's become, again, the reader demand for proprietary information is such that, there really is no other choice. And I certainly use sources all the time, but, you just can't be wrong. You can't miss, so you can't go with one. You have to do the best you can to get as many as you can. And, you've got to, even if you're using sources, you got to get it right. I mean, that's just that there's no way around it. But I think if we didn't have it, I think Bill Simmons would miss it, because if suddenly we couldn't report anything except what was on the record, all of these little tidbits that we're talking about would go away pretty quickly.
I would miss it, but on the other hand, what I don't miss is the part where I think it's really easy for certain reporters to get manipulated by people within the industry who are giving them information for certain things. And I'm sure you're very aware of this. I know, because we've talked about it. But, like let's say Kyrie Irving in Cleveland, he seems like he's unhappy. I'm a rival GM or a rival assistant GM, and I know there might be a world someday where Kyrie Irving's either available by trade or by free agency. And now I feed somebody who I know is writing a Kyrie Irving might be unhappy story, and I tell the person, yeah, I'm hearing it's miserable there, blah, blah, blah. I just, whatever. I'm playing poker. I'm making up some stuff, or I'm twisting stuff around, and I'm hoping that this guy writes it because it's all part of the bigger picture, which is I'd love to see Kyrie Irving get traded, and that's the part that I think is dangerous, because I don't think certain media people realize that they're being used as pawns for some part of a larger game. And that's the thing that I think has been disappointing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and look, I think that's always been around to a degree. I mean, I think even if you go back to Vessi's heyday, that he was forced to use sourcing as much as anyone, because nobody ever wants to go on the record with that kind of stuff. But that's just a reality. One of the skills in this job that you have to really learn because it's something you're not going to learn in school. You're only going to learn by experiences. Look, we're lied to every single day. It's your job to, figure out the lies. And, when are you being spun? When are you being lied to? How much of this is agenda? I mean, that's just, those are all questions that you have to ask yourself.
Yeah, I had, I was the first one to throw out Steve Kerr for Phil with the Knicks. And that was part educated guess and part, somebody I trusted who was not Steve Kerr, but somebody who I trusted who knew the situation said, that's the guy Phil Jackson's going to go after. And now I have to make a decision. Why is that person telling me this? Is he telling me this because he likes me? Is he telling me this because he wants us to get out? Is he telling me this because he's trying to steer me in the wrong direction? And you have to go through this. And this is something that, all these people go to grad school for journalism. I went to grad school for journalism. There's no class that teaches you this. It's almost, you have to kind of trust your gut on stuff, and it becomes more about human nature and solving whatever the puzzle is of that moment. And I think some people do a bad job solving the puzzle sometimes is my point. But I think it is kind of it's fun, right? It's a little dangerous. It's a little like being on the high wire, but at the same time, it is kind of enjoyable.
Well, it's fun. The fun part for me has always been the people, because, I think you were probably like this to the nth degree, way beyond me, but I remember spending much of my high school life congregated at the lockers with my buddies, obsessing over last night's box scores and, being wrapped up in our version of a NBA rotisserie league, whatever you would have called it in the 80s. And so to be able to have this life where, you're talking to people about these things and it's the real world now. I mean, it's what I was doing when I was 16 and I love doing it now for real. Talking hoops with people is the best part of this.
Right. And I think we saw that in round one, like the people that cover the league and write about the league and talk about the league. Everybody was just so enthralled by game one. It was like, oh yeah, that's why we do this, because these games are awesome, and it's just, it was kind of a validation of all these stupid days, in January when you're watching some stupid game at 11:30 at night or whatever. And then it kind of is able to pay off in round one with something like the Lillard shot. It's cool. It's good times. Marc Stein, pleasure as always. Where are you headed? Where are you traveling these next two rounds?
I am actually staying a little bit close to home, working on some featurey type stuff, trying to get my Jonathan Abrams on. And I don't know exactly where I'm going. I'm popping in and out with the Spurs here and there. I saw all the Spurs Dallas series. Did go to OKC for Durant's press conference, and I'm really glad I did, because that was an all timer. But
yeah, great moment.
I'll go where the wind takes me.
All right. As always, a pleasure. 7 years apart. First guest and now the first guest of part 3 of the anniversary podcast. Let the
record show. Nobody can take it away from me.
Put it on his Wikipedia page. All right. Thanks, Marc Stein.
Complex Litigation. This is John.
Johnny.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
Guess what today is?
May 8th?
It's the 7th anniversary of the creation of the BS Report.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah, and we're calling you. Didn't even tell you.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. It used to be called Eye of the Sports Guy. I tried to figure this out. You're definitely in the top 3 of, I think, most guest appearances. You're the Terry Garr of the BS Report.
Excellent. High praise indeed.
What's going on with you? How are you feeling about the baseball season?
I feel okay. I felt better several weeks ago, but I feel okay.
That's it? Just okay? You sound very lukewarm.
I think okay sums it up nicely. Yeah, I mean, when the Yankees had, Pineda and Tanaka and Pineda and pray for a tornado, I felt good with the two young aces of the American League, but then poor Pineda got himself in trouble with some pine tar, and then he strained his lat or oblique or some muscle, and so he's pretty much out for all of May. And then, you're plugging in David Phelps and Vidal Nuno because Nova also hurt his elbow and had to have Tommy John, and he's out for the year. And poor Sabathia is just a shadow of his former self, not just in his new svelte appearance, but in his inability to throw faster than 90 miles an hour. So these situations have proved problematic for the Yanks pitching staff. But
you've
they've
talked yourself
rebounded a little bit now. So
you've talked yourself into the Jacoby Ellsbury era.
Oh, yeah. Anybody that had like April 22nd as the day that I would fall in love with him, please collect your money. Because, I'm a big Ellsbury supporter. I've forgotten his whole Red Sox past now.
Just wait until he tweaks a hammy and he's out for 9 weeks. And
I know.
You'll not be as big of a fan.
I think it was last weekend that he had some mysterious hand injury that he got on an off day, which is always suspicious, the off day injury.
Yeah.
Had a lot of those in the Carl Pavano era. So, but he only missed one game, I think. So, yeah, that was my heart kind of fluttered on that one, but it all turned out for the best. So,
where did things with you and Marc Stein stand?
We're good right now. He's been hot lately. He hit a big home run the other night, and I didn't stay up to watch last night's game because it was a Wednesday night and I'm old, but and out in California. But he had a big game last night too, so he's surprisingly. Usually it takes him until like June 30th to get heated up, but he's early this year, so it's good. He had some time with the kids when he pulled his hamstring or his groin, and did wonders for him apparently. Maybe
he could spend time with your kids.
Maybe.
And you have a little Dellin Betances fever?
I do have Dellin Betances fever. Yeah, he's been good out of the bullpen. A little wild, but he brings the heat.
Longtime member of my League of Dorks minor leagues.
Nice.
Had him forever, and now he's looking like the next Mariano Rivera. It's almost like Mariano Rivera, as his last act as a Yankee, just put his hand on Dellin Betances' hand and did the whole "when Apollo died, a part of me died too, but now you're the one." He did that whole speech.
Whatever it was, it worked. I would like him not to be as wild as he is, but he's been decent.
So the real elephant in the room has been every painful Derek Jeter at bat. Can you walk us through that at all?
Yeah, he had a 0-for-7 streak that was painful to watch, but had his first home run last night, though. That's a good sign.
Oh, there you go.
So he's coming around.
Congratulations, Johnny. It's May 8th.
He was 2 for 4 on Tuesday. He broke out of the slump. He's not getting any younger, but he's hanging in there. We're doing okay.
So Podcast Joe just emailed me an email, and I don't know how true this is. It must be from Wikipedia or somewhere, but most common BS report guests. Apparently, Cousin Sal has done 136 episodes. You are number 2 at 111.
Wow, impressive.
You're the only 2 in the hundreds.
Wow.
And then it goes down from there. Joe House is at 68. You're lapping Joe House.
What's House 68?
68. But he did make Sal throw up though in House Eats 3, so he's got that over you.
That should count for a couple extra appearances, I think.
But yeah, do you feel like I remember when we started doing this, and I started calling you in 2007, and we would do the whole Yankees Red Sox thing and whatever, and I feel like every year people care less and less about baseball, just like a tiny bit, not like a noticeable amount, but it feels like it's slightly less and less relevant every year. And I don't know whether I'm just imagining that or whether that's the reality. What do you think?
Is it people or you?
Well, I'm taking myself out of it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, baseball, I hope it doesn't go the way of like boxing and horse racing, which, for a good 50 years in this country were the top sports. And, now baseball is so slow paced and, the MTV generation, which is funny to say, but kids today with their smartphones and their video games and what have you in the fast paced world, there's not enough action. There's no loud music. There's long periods where nothing really seems to happen. Right. There's not a lot of scoring generally. So, yeah, I think that they have a problem. They start World Series games at 9:00 at night. Every Yankees Red Sox game is on at 8:00 and goes until 1:00 in the morning. So you have a hard time breeding young fans or continuing with young fans. So yeah, I mean, I think baseball is kind of an old man's game.
I do worry about it. I don't have a chance to make my son a baseball fan. It's just not happening.
No, because kids like football, people run into each other, and basketball is flashy and there's scoring, and hockey has both flashiness and people running into each other. So that's got the best of both worlds, I guess. And if you go to an arena, there's when there's stoppages in play, there's music every 14 seconds. blaring and like, halftime entertainment. Baseball doesn't have any of that stuff.
Yeah, it even seems like even if you look at a sport like soccer, at least I know when the game's going to end.
Yeah,
if I take my son to a soccer game, I'm out of there in 2 hours, and I know this for a fact.
Yeah, that's a good point, too, because the time is running. Even the injury time, you're not going to go that long. But a baseball game, even without extra innings, there's no clock. So profound statements. There's no clocks in baseball.
Yeah.
But
maybe there should be. We've talked about this before on the podcast, but I would be 1,000,000% for a shot clock in baseball, where it's like you got 14 seconds to pitch. And
didn't they institute that rule a couple of years ago where the ump will tell guys if they're too slow, like you're going to be on the clock, and the umps, you're supposed to keep track, and the guy's not supposed to step out of the box.
But these umpires can't even figure out how to go to the bathroom. These are not competent people. I would actually just have a clock, just count it down, 15 seconds, maybe it's okay not to have anybody take maybe no more throws to first base anymore, and maybe you can only take a lead past a certain point on between first and second. You can only go 8 feet, and that's it. And they can't throw over. I don't know. I'm just
fundamentally changing aspects of the game, though.
Maybe you have to, though. Maybe it's time.
No, why do things always have to adapt to appeal to a 13-year-old? Maybe the 13-year-old should adapt.
Well, it's not even 13-year-old. It might be 25-year-old.
Well, maybe they should change too. That's what I'm going to say. I'm a conservative. I'm going to stand up for the tried and true tradition.
You should. I think it's a good corner for you. But I got my young Grantland dudes, they don't watch baseball. It's alarming to me. I have all these guys who love sports, but yet don't really care about baseball. I think it's not, that can't be a good sign.
No, it's a problem, and they should start World Series games earlier, I think. But I mean, I don't know. Baseball's always going to be in some people's hearts, though, from Little League, and you grow up playing it, and just the romance of it, going to a game with your dad and all that.
Yeah, except
summer. What are you going to do in the summer? There's no NBA. There's no football. You're going to watch training camp. Come on.
The ratings are way down for ESPN's baseball stuff, alarmingly.
Maybe they need to have another steroid era. People like that, like the home
steroids
run chase.
Are good. Or maybe figure out a way to work concussions into this. People love talking about concussions.
Absolutely.
Maybe no more catcher masks. Maybe just get rid of those things.
Absolutely. There you go. Liven things up.
Maybe move the pitcher's mound a little bit closer. Maybe that thing moves to within 35 feet.
There you go. There you go.
No more batting helmets. Get those out.
Isn't attendance doing well, though?
It is, but soccer has good attendance too.
Yeah. Wait, America?
Yeah, the
soccer
MLS,
in America has good attendance.
Some of these MLS teams crank out.
Well, I know,
in
where is it? Portland or Seattle or somewhere, right? They have a big team.
No, you know what? The reality is it might be a sport that the regular seasons, the attendance is good. The rights deals for all the cable networks are good because they can churn out so many hours, and live rights are really important. And they're always going to make a ton of money from that. And then it's going to become a sport where people really start paying attention in September, October. I do wonder, though, we lost the records, which was a big thing.
Yeah, that's part of it.
And it was that was such a big part of following baseball is this guy is doing this and this compares to this. And that's just gone now. It's like if somebody has X amount of homers, you don't even know what that means. You can't put it into a context. 3,000 hits
500 home runs is not automatic entry into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Right.
But 3,000 hits, for Jeter getting 3,000 hits, I feel like that matters.
Sure.
If he ends up with 3,500 hits, I can put that into some sort of context. But
it's pretty incredible. I mean, he's knocking on the door of Yastrzemski, I think, if he hasn't already passed him, to be number 7. I think within this season, even if he has a bad season, he's going to be have the 6th most hits of all time. Pretty incredible when you think about it.
Yeah, and in both cases, incredible with Jeter with the amount of women he slept with, and incredible with Yaz with the amount of Marlboro Reds he put down during that time.
Exactly. See, there's a reason to there's why you should like baseball, kids. You could sleep with a lot of women and smoke a lot of cigarettes and still be at the pinnacle of your game.
Those are two great things.
Speaking of Jeter and his farewell tour, the Angels last night, they gave him a Yankees paddle board. It's like a surfboard that you stand on and paddle on. I'm sure he'll be breaking that out in the fall.
Breaking that out with one of his girlfriends?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I don't know. Sure, he's out in Tampa. Probably throw that right in the water and go for a paddleboard.
Can you please keep track of all the gifts Jeter is getting for a special edition Jeter retirement tour podcast that we could do during the summer?
I will. I forget if he's gotten any. I think Houston may have given him. Did they give him cowboy boots or something? I think.
Yeah,
he can wear his Yankee cowboy boots on his Yankee paddleboard. At
what point does he just give the gift to the clubhouse attendant?
Well, it's got to be hard getting a paddleboard back on the plane. Some poor Yankees schlub has to worry about transporting that back to Jeter's house.
Jeter's
it might be like
that
Wrigley cake that they just found in the dumpster outside of the stadium.
Jeter tells the Yankees, "Can you just tell people cufflinks, things maybe smaller, maybe a watch? Watch would be nice."
I have to pay extra to ship the paddleboard back. Maybe the Angels shipped it for him. They're they just gave it to him. They're like, "We'll mail it to Tampa for you."
Maybe a money clip or wallet would be great.
Collage,
gift certificate.
Anything.
Yeah, gift certificate. No paintings. I don't want to have to carry a painting.
Right.
Yeah, it's going to be weird. We're about to enter a world with no Jeter and no Mariano Rivera.
Yeah, it's the end of the core four. It'll be a new Yankees team. But, they got Brian McCann and Ellsbury and Pineda, Tanaka, new generation. What
are you calling Ellsbury? Did you come up with a weird nickname for him yet or no?
I have not. No. He's Jacoby.
Okay.
Els. They probably call him Els in the clubhouse, right?
Elsie,
yeah.
I love that you're rooting for him already. It's fantastic.
Of course.
Makes me really happy.
I'm not proud. Come on.
What TV are you watching? Anything?
Well, Mad Men, obviously.
Oh.
And I like the show that's on before Mad Men called Turn, which is about spies in the American Revolution. Couldn't be any more in my wheelhouse.
Yeah, we were just talking about corners, and there's no better corner right now than you being on the Turn corner, because literally it's just you.
It's pretty much, yeah.
I don't even know, how do you find people to even talk about Turn with?
Well, just my wife. My wife and I talk about it, but that's about it, yeah. And actually, I mentioned it on Twitter. A couple of people chimed in, including the gentleman who wrote the book called Washington Spies that it's based on.
Oh.
So he chimed in and thanked me for my support after I mistakenly claimed it was based on someone else's book. So
it's bad when you're tweeting about Turn and somebody directly involved with the project tweets you back thanking you for your support. Probably not a good idea for the ratings.
I was hoping I could parlay it into maybe be an extra on the show or something. I was getting measured for my blue Revolutionary War coat.
Season 2 when it's picked up by Netflix after AMC cancels it.
Absolutely. This is the most press they've gotten. I think they owe me a walk-on role. Yeah,
they're definitely this podcast now getting passed around. All the people with Turn at AMC whoa, hey, Turn. So is it actually good? Because I'm going to be on the
road. I'm going to be on the road for 6 weeks. I don't want to mock it. I want it to stay on the air. I like it.
I'm going to be on the road for 6 weeks. I need shows to watch when I'm in my hotel room, not being able to sleep at 3 in the morning.
You probably wouldn't like it, but it's good.
Well, why do you say that with such disdain? You probably wouldn't like it.
I think you're going to make fun of me because you'd be like, the backgrounds are cheesy, or it's too historical. It was boring,
Well, because you're still smarting from when you love John Adams so much, and I made fun of you for that.
Well, I didn't really love it. I'll be honest. I'd never even watched the end of it, I don't think, but it was okay.
I thought you were in on John Adams.
No, I wanted to be in on John Adams, but I didn't love it.
I think that I'm you know what? Just because it's 7th anniversary, I'm going to give away a multi-million-dollar idea to some TV network. So here we go. The show that needs to happen is the 10-episode season. That's it, about Hamilton and Burr, leading up to the season finale when they have the duel. I'm in on that show. I'm in. Right now I'm in, I'm telling you. Miniseries, whatever it needs to be, I'm in. Who's not fascinated by Hamilton and Burr?
It is pretty interesting.
I mean, Mike, they had a duel. They literally killed each other.
The Vice President of the United States shooting somebody, Mike. Killed him.
This guy's literally killing him. They shoot a gun at each other, Mike. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
But yeah, the days of duels were great. Now we just have people pissing on each other on Twitter. I feel like we've gone backwards.
Well, the problem is between rappers and athlete duels, and there'd be so many dead people from duels that it would really rock the celebrity and sports world.
it would probably be its own channel.
Bieber would be dead like 10 times over already.
You get a shot right now. I'm going to have to watch Turn. I won't make fun of it, I swear.
All right. No, it's good. It's legit.
Mad Men, I mean, I know why it's happening, and I know why it has to happen. I know Don Draper represents this early part of the 60s, and now he doesn't fit in with this generation. All this is symbolic of something, but it just hurts when Don Draper's not stepping in with flight attendants. I'm just going to say that.
Job.
It's just, like, don't take that away from me, Mad Men.
I've been yelling at my TV a lot about Mad Men this year. Like, don't do that, Don, or do that. Like, don't, Don. No, don't drink the vodka in the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Don't go to a Mets game with Freddie Rumsen.
Yeah,
I was hoping he wouldn't take their offer, when they've had all these conditions.
I know.
That's what everybody wanted, was Don to just stand up and say, stuff it.
Yeah. But unfortunately, well, maybe this is part of the whole Don process, is maybe he needs to really hit rock bottom before
he can bounce back up, make his climb.
I got to say, him leaning back into Peggy's doorway and going, ball game. Yeah. I did enjoy that. It was a little flash of the old Don.
That was good.
But when he didn't have sex with Nev Campbell, a part of me died.
That was brutal.
She was begging for it, Johnny.
He had a couple opportunities. He had the mysterious blonde woman when the other company was making him an offer. He had Nev Campbell. Yeah. Terrible job by Don.
Come on, Don Draper.
Come on, buddy.
It's almost like Don Draper knows he has a PG movie coming out on May 16th and doesn't want to affect the family audience for it.
It could
be. Well, I'm going to miss Mad Men. You don't watch Game of Thrones, though?
I do not, no.
God, that upsets me.
We were going to, my wife was going to.
I begged you to watch it.
Yeah, I know. We should. One of these days we'll get into that. In the summer or something. I don't know. We'll get the DVDs. Got to start catching up because it's in season 5 or whatever.
No, it's season 4, and it's only like 34 episodes.
Oh, that's easy. I could bang that out then.
You like shows with nudity?
I do. That's true.
You like shows with rampant violence and crazy themes like incest and royalty, and there's just a lot going on. There's dragons.
Well, there you go.
I think you should step in. You need something now that with Jeter's career just really limping to the finish. You need Khaleesi in your life, I think.
Justified is done for now, and then you know I've got Turn, so I need to see who wins the American Revolution. So don't spoil that for me.
God, this is the saddest TV conversation we've ever had. Turn and a pathetic Don Draper. Come on, Don Draper. Turn it around, for God's sakes.
We also like Vikings on History Channel, but that's in hiatus now, too. So
interesting. All right, JackO.
All right, buddy.
It's been a fun 7 years. It's been a fun 25 years for us, actually. Well,
thanks,
26.
buddy. We're not breaking up, are we?
No, I'm just. It's 26 years and counting for us, Johnny.
That's better. Just looking back. Okay.
When did we start? September '88.
August of '88. Yeah, we're coming
August
up
88.
on. What's that?
It's gonna be a 26 year anniversary.
Amazing.
Yeah. We lasted longer than Mike and the Mad Dog.
They said it wouldn't last.
I'll talk to you soon.
All right, buddy. Bye-bye.
All right, that's going to be it for the BS Report 3-part 7-year anniversary. We did not get to Joe House. We did not get to Cousin Sal. We did not get to Isaiah Thomas. We did not get to President Barack Obama. We did not get to Larry Bird. There's some people we missed. We weren't going to try to cover everybody, but we had 3 solid parts. Thanks to Dave Jacoby. Thanks to Podcast Joe. Thanks to Harlan Endelman. Thanks to Carlos Sepulveda. And thanks from a way back past to Joe Mead, our old friend who was the producer for the first couple of years of the Eye of the Sports Guy and BS Report. Thanks to Chris Connolly and Chuck Klosterman and all the great guests, all the Mount Rushmore guests, Mike Lombardi, Steve Kerr. Thanks to everybody for all the times they came on. And thanks to you guys for the feedback. We'll talk to you soon on the BS Report.
Target percent off. Whoa.
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much fun.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at Podcenter at ESPNradio.com.
Peace out.
Hey, what you got there, Golick?
The new Subway Chipotle chicken melt with guacamole.
Man, that looks good.
Yeah, this new guac is really bringing the flavor.
Got one for me too, right?
Well, yes and no. Mostly no. Well, really, all no.
Try the irresistible new Subway Chipotle chicken melt with guacamole, juicy grilled chicken strips with Monterey cheddar, Chipotle Southwest sauce, and new guacamole made from ripe Hass avocados with just a hint of jalapeno. Subway, eat fresh.